Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Fireball plus Blast Shield equals Mage Cannon, written by InBabylonTheyWept. You can't read. It was a statement, not an accusation. The glyph of madness is one of the highest arts in sigil craft. To look at it with any semblance of understanding, to even think the word it spelled, was to tear one's mind open like a head of crisp letters. But the human was not going mad. In fact, he was openly squinting at it, mouth sounding out each character separately. Arlatha was vaguely aware that this was a good moment to get the first strike, but he was too flabbergasted to remember any spells. The entirety of his brain was focused on the idea that somehow Tom Bug, the master duelist, the mage of the south, the bane of the north, was functionally illiterate. His reverie was interrupted by Tom's first guess. Gongdesh? It wasn't even close. Fortunately, seeing the truth confirmed gave Alathian his words back. Instead of a verbal reply, he hurled a fireball. It was a simple spell, all power and no technique, but cast fast enough that, with any luck, Tom wouldn't have a time to counter. He, like many before him, severely underestimated how fast Tom could counter. The little mage sidestepped the fireball in one smooth slide, even as he shaped a fire shield around himself. The barrier was an unusual design, flat and round the back instead of angled, and thick to boot, far thicker than was necessary if the goal was to just deflect the blast. As the white-hot orb struck the ground behind the wizard, as the shock traveled back and caught the barrier like a kite, Arthur realized his mistake. Tom was famous for thriving in close quarters. It was why his staff had a goddamned pole-arm blade stuck on the end. It was why Arlathan had picked his position more than 100 feet away, up a 30-degree incline. He needed the space. And now he'd lost it. The shockwave threw Tom in a solid ballistic trajectory, not far enough to close the entire gap, but close. The wizened man cartwheeled through the air, laughing maniacally, only stabilizing himself with small jets of flame a few moments before impact. His landing wasn't a graceful, upright stance, but sliding forward on both knees wasn't bad after getting blasted 60 feet forward. If Tom's hands hadn't been free enough to spray a path of ice forward, he'd probably have rubbed both kneecaps down to the bone, skating the slash-gravel mix. Instead, he was closing the last 40 feet of distance at speeds that hunting hounds would envy. Arlathan didn't bother trying to target Tom at that speed. Dodging would be easy. Instead, he channeled mana into a ground in front of him, where there had once been stone and slush. A wall of steel-hard icicles burst through the ground like braced spears. Letting Tom run into the spikes would be a lot easier than making the spikes run into Tom. It was a good thought. It didn't work, but that didn't mean that it wasn't clever. One of Tom's hallmarks was the ability to dual-cast elements. It took an incredible amount of will, but what Tom lacked in literacy and patience and manners, he made up for in stubborn focus. He was 9 stones worth of iron will, held together with gristle and rage. With one hand, he shaped a simple ramp of ice, and with the other, he forced the last traces of mana out in a single, heatless spike. Arlathan's best case had been that Tom would impale himself on the spikes, and his worst case was that the man would blast away through the ice wall. He was instead caught completely unprepared, as what he got was 20-foot elbow drop from an airborne Tom, launched over the wall of spikes he just barely formed. It was a brutish first strike, and Arlathan's clavicle snapped like dry tinder. He howled, but whether it was from the pain of the blow or the fear that Tom was now upon him, he did not know. It was too close for Tom to use the halberd, thank the gods, but that didn't mean that he wasn't a threat. Tom always fought like a wild animal. He'd be a threat as long as he had his hands and teeth. The first blow he threw in after the crash landing was a punch at the elf's exposed throat. Arlathan was mostly out of mana anyway, but the blow left the two of them on equal footing. There would be no more spells from either of them that day. What had started as a fearsome magic battle between two powerful mages was going to end as a brawl between two scrawny men in skirts. Arlathan knew that this was the moment that Tom lived for. This was the point where he won every single one of his duels. He could counter and halt and play the mage all day, but the part that he excelled at was being the brawler in the aftermath. Meanwhile, whatever skill Arlathan had in sigils, he frankly lacked in spells. He never had to begin with in melee. He could not win. No one who had ever gotten stuck this close to Tom had triumphed. So he turned on his heels, hoping to escape and live to fight another day. It was pure survival at that point, planned in that he knew what would happen if he stayed, unplanned in that he did not know what lay behind him even as he turned around, did not remember. The last thing he saw was a purple glow of a sigil he himself had spent hours tracing oh so carefully into the stone. A lone word rang out in his mind, a harsh with G's and U's. It was the last word he ever thought. Tom himself did not give chase after that. He saw the man flee the battle screaming, watching him make it a quarter mile up the pass before his screams turned into laughs. The last thing he saw before the man turned past the blind Ben in Oscar's pass was pale skin, as the elf's robe was discarded somewhere in the snow. Tom debated what to do next, and figured it would be best to set up camp for the evening. With no clothes, the elves would be dead by morning, and he did not like the thought of journeying down the mountain knowing that a naked madman could be lurking somewhere in the dark. As he got the fire going, he rummaged through his pack to find his favorite book. He didn't know that the title was Amelia's Illustrated Guide to Draconology, but he didn't need to. All he really cared about were the lovingly detailed sketches of scales and claws and great serpentine bodies. Tom liked being human, but if he had to pick something else, anything else, he thought he would have made a very good dragon. End of story. Story number 2. Letters from Home, written by JohnGaldt. "Sarah," said the soldier. He was young, too young to be mounted in a few tons of armor and wearing servers. "That's me," said Sarah. The soldier held out a letter, her name penned to the front. She swallowed hard around the growling hard lump in her throat. "Thank you." He frowned and nodded awkwardly before slipping his helmet back on. There seemed to be no youth left in him. She carried the letter away from the mess tent and the smell of smoke and soup. Her Wellingtons were heel-deep in cold puddles. The rain flung up sideways in the spray of downcast landing thrusters, soaked into her hair and rolled down her cheeks. She walked into her tent quietly, stepping around the dozens of beds laid out on the floor, and opened her letter, slipping the disk into her terminal. She sucked in a breath when his face appeared on the screen, frozen in a cocky smile until she hit play. "Hey, beautiful, it's John. I know who is that strange man. I had to shave it off. Can't wear a gas mask for 12 hours with whiskers in your teeth. The slugs will chicken out soon enough, and I'll grow it back. Next time you see me, I'll be back to my old self. I miss you. Send me a picture. Not that kind. I just want your face somewhere. It's weird talking to a camera. Hey, Sarah, it's John, and this is FU-22, my exo-helmet. Yep, you were right. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That's why they put me in a flame unit. Don't have to aim. Just squint and squeeze. Shaving the hair too. Don't freak out, hair grows back. I'm just going to be a baldy for a while. Suit's hot and all that. Slugs are calling in the goats. Not sure if I'm allowed to tell you that. If I just went quiet and jumped forward, I told you something I shouldn't have. I didn't get a picture from you, or any messages. Makes sense, though. We move a lot. They say that you're getting these, so here I am. I gotta finish cleaning this, I love you. Hey, Sarah, fingertips are a funny thing. Don't worry, didn't hurt much. Suit kicked in and doped me. Doc grew my hands back, but there's no wrinkles, no fingerprints or scars. It's like I'm wearing gloves, and if I pull at this flesh, pale skin, my old hands would be underneath. Well, they're not. I saw what happened over the feed. Our old home gone, just to ash. I heard they got everyone out, but I saw bodies down there on deployment. I was in Genoa, I think. Maybe it was a different way you were. Apparently you'll get this late because they can't keep track of where everyone is. Stay safe. I love you. Sarah, it's John. I know I look different, but it's still me. Goat clipped a juice box in my company, took out the burners and crisped me up. I'm sorry if you got a letter. They thought that we were gone for a while. It's weird not recognizing yourself. People look at me odd, still look at my suit the same. They see my helmet and relax. I don't really feel like talking. It's Fume. That's what they call me now. Fume's Crispies. We're all fresh-faced. Docs say that they can grow everything back, but honestly, this is my fourth face. I just start to get crow's feet and smile lines, and I'm a fresh-faced again. I've crisped on my suit so many times, it's got so much of my DNA. It's practically a relative. You're dead. I know you're not getting these. I cleaned out the refugee camp after slugs hit them. Just bodies. Nobody got out, but there weren't enough people there in the first place. I don't know how many of us there still are, but the odds we both made it, I miss you. It's silly and shitty, but I can't remember your face. I remember your golden hair in my fingers, laying in the sun because Feck getting up. I remember your smile and how it made me feel, but I can't picture your face. I'm starting to forget my own face, my old one. The war's not coming to an end by the look of it. It won't stop till we're all gone, so I'll probably be seeing you soon. How will we find each other if we don't recognize each other? The screen sat frozen on his last message. Sarah's brow furrowed, and she quickly leapt up from the chair, jumping over sleeping spaces and heading for the flap. The soldier had followed her, sitting on the cargo flat and resting forward on his knees. Sarah searched his helmet and reached up, her thumb rubbing away the caked ash and mud to reveal the call sign, Fume FU-22. John? End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.